Let's begin with you can call it as user management. So in a way, you can also call it as role management also. So the reason is, so when you go for management of users or roles, they are synonymous actually. Means you can use them in an interchangeable way. So is one and same. So whether you go for user management or role management is one and same. So you can also use user or role. In fact, okay, whenever you create a user, so it will say that role got created. And if you manage, okay, so you are going to manage it as a role itself. Means importance is given for role than user. So, but even then, okay, you'll be able to create user. Okay, so and you can create role separately also. There is one small difference between user and role. Apart from that, so they are synonymous. You can use either user keyword or role keyword when you want to do any administrative task with respect to users. So only thing is, okay, user or role is a where is a way in which, okay, so users will be able to connect to the Postgres database or enter Postgres database or individual database, and they can perform their activities. So with respect to that, if you consider, we can consider two things. One is authentication. So means when we say authentication, it is related to login to this database. As I said, okay, this can be for Postgres, any database. Okay, so and working with that database. So connecting to the database and working with the objects of a specific database. So it's related to login. Authentication is related to login. And after connecting, users will be able to perform database activities. What are those database activities they can perform? So can be assigned. So in a holistic way. So means authentication is nothing but providing them necessary privileges or okay, so permissions to connect and work with the database, entire database. So they can connect to a database, they can perform database activities. So next is authorization. Authorization is working with objects and contents of those objects. In the other way, we can also call it as permission management. So authentication is user or role management. So authorization is permission management. So users should have necessary permissions on the objects to work with that object, structure of the object, and also the content of the object. So initially we want to discuss authentication. So means connecting to database, working with database, performing database activities. So these are the activities that is comes under authentication. Authorization is working with objects and contents, so which we'll see it as permission management later part. Now, so here as we are discussing now, if you go for user, or role is one and same. They are synonymous. So you can use them in an interchangeable way. So if you use user keyword or role keyword, doesn't matter. Okay, you can use either one of them. But one small difference is, so whenever you create user, any user you create, okay, so that user by default will have one additional permission which is not there with role actually. That is, login will be true. Means when you create user by default will have login permission. Whereas if you create a role, so it's same as user in all aspects, but whenever you create, so login is false, which you can assign, but when you create by default, it is not there. Now, whenever you create user or role, you can assign that user to other users. You can assign that user to a role also. Okay, a role can be assigned to a role. A role can be assigned to users also. Means not only using them interchangeable way, you can also assign them to other users or roles, and in such cases we call them as role users. In one more way, we can call it as a group actually. Group. So we can call them as role members or role users. So whenever you assign a user to user or role to role or user to role, whichever the way, so you can treat it as role members. So what are the permissions are there with a specific user assigned to a role? So can be inherited by the user to whom you assign a role. Actually means you can use both the privileges or permissions are available with whichever you assign. So suppose if you assign user 1 to user 2, so user 2 can use both. So permissions directly available and permissions which are got from user 1, and we call such type of users as role users. Sometimes it might be useful whenever user want to assume two roles and perform the activities. So instead of switching to roles, they can use role group, which is nothing but role members. So user and role are same, synonymous. Only difference is while creating. So if you create user, if you use create user permission, create user syntax, so user will have login option. If you use create role, so that user or role will not have login option by default. So which you can assign, Okay, so here users and roles are synonymous. If you use while creating or while managing, you can use user keyword or role keyword. So you know now only one difference is what? When you create user, apart from that rest of the things are same. When you create user, user will have login option or login permission by default. If you create role, login permission will not be available by default. So let us look into that. So whenever we discuss about authentication, so user must be authenticated to perform activities within database. Means if they want to perform database activities, even login is also a database activity. So when you create a user, so it is assigned by default. When you create role, login is not assigned by default. Okay, login is also a way of authentication. Now, whenever you want to make any user a super user, so we got only one super user, Postgres. So by default, you create user or role, so they are not super users. So they are normal users. So, but while creating itself, you can assign. Okay, they can become super users. You can assign. A means assign. Default. D is default. A is assign. So default users or roles are not super users. You have to assign them. And there are some permissions which can be used to work with database. Okay, here I'm taking two important permissions which we can use. One is create DB. Okay, create DB. So any user has got create DB permission will be able to create databases. Any user has got create role permission can create user and roles. So now if you consider default, so create DB is also not there available with users. Users can't create databases, or even role can't create databases. You have to assign that explicitly. Means if your requirement is whichever the user you create, so it should work with objects of a database. So they should not work with the entire database. So in that case, you can avoid giving create database. So similar to that, whichever the user you create, you can assign create role. So by default, it is not assigned. Okay, if you want to assign them, okay, you can assign it while creating itself. Means assigning of permissions can be done while creating or by altering users and roles. So they are synonymous. As I said, they are synonymous. You can assign these like login, super user, create DB, create role. All are permissions actually. All are permissions. Means all are the permissions that users can use, can be assigned while creating user. And even can be assigned by altering user. So unassigning, we must use alter only. We must use unassign. We have to use alter user or alter role, and we have to unassign it. So this is about authentication. So we default some of the permissions are login. User will have login permission. Role will not have that. Super user. So either user or role that you create will not be super users. You can assign it. Create DB, create role. So even that will not be there for any user. You can just create an account if they want to perform any activity within database or you want to connect to database, you must assign it except for user. Okay, so for role, there will be no login option also. Now here, if you take an example, whenever you want to create a user, okay, whenever you want to create a user, you must specify name for the user. You must specify the name for the user. Okay, and you should specify password. So these two are required. And even if you don't specify login, default user will get login option. But whenever you create user, you can assign it. Okay, you can assign it. By default is not there, but you can assign it. So any user you want to create or any role you want to create, you must give name, you must give password. So for role, if you don't give password, so they'll not be able to set that, okay, for their requirements if they want to set it. Login, user will get login by default. So your role will not have that, but you can assign. For creating role also you can assign it. Again, any other database activities permissions that are required, like super user, create DB, create role, super user can do anything. Okay, super user can do anything, must be assigned explicitly. So this is about group and role. So when you, sorry, user and role, when you say group, so you want to make, there may be multiple roles. So, and you may have one important role. Okay, one important role. So you can assign additional roles or other roles to a role, important role. So that will be called as group actually. So here I'm just calling it as role. It can be user also, because you know that we can use them synonymously. So keyword can be role or user. Preferably use role. Preferably use role. So here any role which will get the roles, other roles assigned to it. So we'll inherit all those permissions available with the main roles actually. Okay, and this will be called as a group of roles. Group of roles. Even if you assign one, it is a group of roles. We can also treat as role member. We can also treat as a role member. Okay, further, okay, so we'll see it from the other way. So we can go for any user. Okay, so for example, assume that we'll go for a user by name Satya. Okay, so on password you can assign it as Git. So you can go for user wise, you can create a user and you can assign the required permissions. By default, login permission will be there. So if you want to assign super user permission, create DB permission, you can assign. Suppose in this example, user Satya can log in, will act as super user, can create database also. So create database is not required when you assign super user, because super user can do all activities within database. Database activities can be performed. So same way you can also assign. Okay, suppose if you go for role, so by default you will not have login option, but you can assign it. You can assign super user permission. So you can assign create DB, create role. So permissions can be assigned. And whenever you create role, you can create with password also. If it is a role which is common, you can create without password also. And if it is a role which is important, you have to create with password. And as we discussed, so what is group is nothing but role members, is nothing but multiple roles assigned to one role. So suppose if you got a role by name imp role, you are assigning multiple roles to one role. So you create users You create roles is one and same. Okay, so it is up to you to decide to go for user wise or role wise. As of now, only one difference is user will have by default login option when you create, which you can assign to role also when you create. But explicitly you have to assign. Instead of that, user will have that. And whenever you do any user activity, it will treat as role activity itself internally. And whenever you go for a group, it is a group of roles. Any group that is going to get, so the roles, they are the role members, and okay, so within that group, whichever the group that you have got will have all those permissions which are there, the roles with it actually. Indirectly you're giving all those roles. So this is what the difference in user and role and group. Now, whenever you want to perform any activities, so we want to use create user option. Create user option. By default, you know that login will be there for user. Apart from that, you can also go for alter user, drop user. So drop user will be dropped. You should take care while dropping. You don't prompt. Okay, so to ensure that you don't drop it even if objects are there. And alter user, whenever you want to change the permissions, okay, whenever you change passwords, you can use alter user. Similar to that, okay, we can also use create role, alter role, and drop role also. Whenever you want to get the details, we got only one catalog object called as pg underscore roles. So the information that we can get is through pg underscore roles itself. We don't have pg underscore users. Instead, we got only pg underscore roles. So in case if you want to perform permission management, so we have to use grant and revoke. Here for users, we don't use grant and revoke. Instead, we use users and roles. Instead, we use alter. Whenever you want to grant permissions, so we are going to use alter command rather than grant and revoke. So let us connect to server now to perform this user activity, user and role activity, creating and assigning them. Let me switch to server now. Connecting to server. Connected to a server. Tunga with the IP address. Okay, so I keep showing these things. Okay, so whenever we connect to server is, we won't use this in our next sessions. There is a reason. And here we got a user by name Postgres, who is our software and process owner. We can check for processes running. Okay, so you can see processes are running, and who is the owner for those processes? Postgres, and okay, even that service name is also Postgres itself actually. Here username OS user, Postgres itself is the owner for these services. Now let us connect as user. And so we connected as a Postgres user. We will let us check for utilities which we are using. So which we have taken care of. Okay, so in the previous sessions by setting the necessary environment variables. If you want to check for the processor anywhere running, so we can also use an utility pgctl to manage our processors actually. To manage our processors, we can take care of pgctl. So now anyway, status wise it is running. The service is running, and the database objects are like you can call as pg data location in OS level. Data directory from database level is available here actually. Now let us connect to database. By default we connect to Postgres database. So here Postgres OS user is owner of the services or the Postgres service. We connect as Postgres user, and when we connect also we are connecting to which database? Postgres database itself. Okay, so Postgres database is the database. We got two other databases are there. Okay, which we can create and we can use. In our case, we got only Postgres database now. If you want to create and use other databases, you can do that as we have done in previous sessions. Now, if we check for table spaces, okay, in this database, we got only default databases. So no objects are available. So if I use DU, so it is going to show you the users. Okay, users. So we got only DU is user actually. We got only one user who is a super user. So Postgres is a super user has got create role, create database application. Okay, so all these permissions are there. This user is not member of any other roles. Now we cannot check this through select star from. Okay, so let me describe it. Select role name, role super, create role, create DB, can login. Okay. From PG score roles. So to edit, you can use whatever is there in buffer. If you want to check, you can say print. If you want to edit, E, \E, edit option. So here actually it is not role, role name actually. So it will execute. Means whichever the statement you want to execute, okay, you can check that. Here, this is what is executed is. So we got some roles. Out of that, we are using PG Postgres. Okay, Postgres can login true, super user true, create role true, create DB true. So means if you take Postgres user is everything actually. And if you take any of the other rows which are there, so these permissions are not there actually. They are meant for different purposes. Okay, so we got Postgres user. We can confine only to users which we create. So one is you can use DU. The other is you can also go for where role name in. What are the name you want to give? So for example, in our case, Postgres. So later we'll give create a user by name Satya, Ram, name role, imp role. So this will create later. Okay, so as of now we don't have them. So I can use the same query later also. Okay, again same, edit it. Okay, so if you see now, so we got only Postgres user or role is synonymous. Can log in. The super user can create, okay, role can create database also. The super user can do these two also. So this is what, okay, we got. Let us create an user now. Create role, mem role. You can give any name, create role, mem role. So it says that role got created. Now let us check for our information. So anyway, we added that earlier itself. We should be able to get that. So mem role, whenever create role, so can log in, no. Super user, no. Create role, no. Create DB, so means by default no permissions are available. Same we will create user, but whenever we create user, okay, so I want to give password for that user. Okay, we want to set password for user. So for example, okay, we'll create in this create role name with password. What is the password I want to give? In single quotation mark, valid until. So means month end. So you can give any duration till how long that is valid actually. So here we are using role itself to create it. We are using role to create. So we'll see role got created now. We'll check for the information. Anyway, I've added role RAM earlier. So now we got RAM. So if you see can login false, super user false, create role, create DB, nothing is there. So now let us create one more user. So instead of creating role, let's say create user. Create user, name is Satya with password get valid until. So even if I'm using create role, sorry, create user, it is taking create role itself. Let us verify for the information. So you can see Satya can log in true. Means as I use create user keyword, login option is available. Even when you create RAM, okay, so name wise we know it is a name of the user, but as I use create role, so login option is not available. Means is the only thing. Other things we are not assigned actually. Drop user Satya. User got dropped. So drop user RAM. See when we created user, so when we created RAM, it was I used role keyword, but while dropping I can use user. Drop role mem role. So means while dropping you can use them synonymously. So now again we have only Postgres user. So while creating itself we can assign permissions for users. Okay, so our roles also. Let us do that. Okay, now with while creating we'll assign some permissions for users. Create user or create role. RAM create DB will give login case. We will take it. Create role RAM create DB. Now when we check information, so RAM got created. So it says a role created. Here I'm using create role option. That's why login option is not there for user. So is not super user, can't create role, but can create database. Means RAM can also create database now. RAM can also create database. Now alter user RAM create role login. So you can assign it. So earlier RAM was able to create database only. Now we have given create role and login also. Create role. So RAM can create role, can login also. So here while creating itself we can define other permissions. Create user. So the moment I use create user keyword, login option will be there available for that user Satya with with password git super user. So though it says that create role, the difference will be, so by default user will get login option. So role is super user. So though create role, create DB permission is not there for Satya, we'll be able to create role, create databases also, because Satya is a super user. Super users can do any type of activities, database activities. They can perform any type of database activities within database. Create role, mem role, create DB, create role. So I'm not giving login option. So, and even password also, that can be assigned to other roles kind of thing. Okay, so these are okay, we can create and manage. If you use user keyword, by default login option will be there. Now if you want to assign any additional permissions to users, okay, you can do that, or any additional permission to roles, you can also do that. Using alter user or alter role is possible. So for example, for RAM, you want to revoke create role. Alter user RAM, no create role. So use no keyword as a prefix for the permission, so that will be there. So now for RAM, create role was there earlier. If you see here, create role was there for RAM earlier. So now we have revoked it. So like this, okay, you can assign revoke permissions from users, those who can log in and perform database activities. This is with respect to database activities. So super user can do any activities, but others, they should get necessary permission to do this. So this is what we have done now. We have created group, sorry, user, we have created role. Now create role, imp role with password imp role. Okay, you can give any password. So imp role is created now. So imp role doesn't have any permissions. Now the way you can do is grant mem role to imp role. So you can see imp role is having member role. Okay, imp role is having member role. Grant member role to imp role. So means imp role will inherit all those permissions which are there with member role. So means it is going to take the permissions of member role, whichever is there can be performed. So can't log in, doesn't have any other permissions, but it can use all those permissions which are there with member role. So this is, you can see here, like this you can also grant RAM to imp role. So imp role is having mem role plus RAM role. So RAM is user. Okay, so there's no, we should not call as user or role. So it is one and same actually. Only the syntax wise we can use user. That is otherwise user and roles are same actually. So this is now it is imp role is having two other roles within itself. and whichever those permissions are there, it can inherit all those permissions for itself. If you don't want, then you can revoke RAM from improve, revoke mem role from improve. So now it can work only with the permission it has got, not with any other inherited permissions. So this is about creating creating role and assigning other roles to that role or other users to role. So means role can be assigned to role can be assigned to user, even user can be assigned to roles or user can be assigned to user, because they are one and same actually. And whenever you assign, so it will be created as a group, because it is group of permissions from other roles actually. So this is about creating. Now see, whenever you created, for example, in our case we got okay, so drop imp role. Okay, let us assign and drop. So now you know that, okay, so imp role has got RAM, drop role, imp role. Okay, can be dropped. Means whatever the permission that was there, it is gone actually now. So means even if it is having members, so it can be dropped actually. So this is where we can drop a group also. Now here if you see, we got permissions. Now RAM can create database, but here whenever we're connected as which user? Okay, so Postgres user. So how to know that? Okay, so whether I'm connected as user or whether I'm connected as super user. Okay, and as which user I'm currently working. Now if you see the prompt, whatever the prompt it shows is not username, actually it is database name. Okay, database name. So one of the very important consideration with Postgres is it expects so the database name same as username whom you are going to connect as. So here we are connected as Postgres user. It expects a database by name Postgres itself. Suppose if you connect as RAM, it expects a database by name RAM itself. If you connect as Satya, it expects a database with name Satya itself. Okay, so that is what is expected. But while connecting, you can also connect to other databases. So for example, I'll quit now. Okay, so before quitting, so if you check for the database available, here we got only default databases. So template databases are there apart from Postgres. Let us quit. Now while connecting, you can specify the database name. Template 0. Okay, so you'll not be able to connect to template 0 because it doesn't allow connections. Template 1. So you'll be able to connect actually. What it is showing is the name of the database. Okay, not the username, name of the database to which you connected. So now let us quit. Suppose if I connect without any database name, default I will connect to Postgres database, which is there part of my database. Now, so this is the consideration, but still we don't know as which user we're connecting. But what we can know is, if you see the prompt, this prompt in operating system, what it refers? This prompt in operating system. Okay, fine. Fine, Ramesh. Okay, so fine, Rajneesh. Okay. Okay, Google. Okay. So all of you given right answer. So either answer is root or answer is super user is one and the same. Yes, that is true actually. So hash prompt is root user, super user. So select current user. So we can address Postgres user. Postgres user is acting as super user. Now if we check for other users, so we got one more super user, Satya. Okay, so Satya is available, and Ram. Okay, so Postgres is one more super user. Two super users are there, But okay, so now how to connect as these users? How to connect as these users? So you should connect as client with same name. Okay, so client has same name. Now for that we have to do OS activity. So let us go to root now. etc password. So we got OS user Postgres. And what usually we do is we connect as Postgres user. And what is that we do? We use platform. And when you connect, what is this? Is not username actually. It is database name. Means Postgres user of OS connecting as that user. We are using utility and we are connecting to Postgres database. Postgres database. Now user add minus user add. Satya. So I'm doing this in OS level, operating system level. So I'm using means initial. Usually I'll do that. So initial letter of my user. So I've created user by name Satya now. Which PSQL. So it is going to take. See the older version. What is that you have to do? So I'll just copy it from Postgres user. So those necessary environment variable settings you have to do. So better re-login, always good. Now if you check which PSQL, so using the latest version, because the environment variables are set. PG home, for example, is set. Now I'll try to log in now. PSQL. Now connected as Satya user, operating system user, client. Now I'll use the utility PSQL. So we are not able to connect. Okay, so see if I try to connect as Postgres. PSQL minus U Satya, where we got Satya user. In database we got Satya user. PSQL minus U Satya. I'll try to connect. So it says that what? Peer authentication failed for Satya user. Okay, so means I'll not be able to connect as Satya user. But here when I connected as Satya user itself to OS level, and if I try, it says that database Satya does not exist actually. Means still I'm able to connect. Okay, so means now it is not giving any error because OS user is also Satya now. So now let us try to use -u Satya. Means sorry, database name I'll use Postgres. So connected. If you check for the details, Satya is super user. Super user means what? So can do anything within database. Even login permission is also not required. So login is not required. Super user can log in, can create database, can create role, can do anything within database. Now select current user. So we are connected as Satya. But what is the prompt? Root. So super user prompt actually. Now here if you create a database, create database. So if you look for the databases available now. So we got only default databases. Create database Satya. So Satya database got created, is available. Now whenever we log in, we don't use the database name. So now here, okay, if you see OS user, I have connected as Satya user. So now I'll use the platform PSQL. Now we are able to connect to Postgres database. So Postgres DB, okay, which is a cluster of databases. To which database we are connecting? So database by same name as the username. Database same name as the username. Now, okay, so database is available, users available, but we are connected as current user Satya. And if you check for the objects in this database, okay, so we got so here we don't have any objects as Satya user, or okay, so in Satya database, create table, new tab. So we got a table now, new tab. So who's owner? Satya. Table, new tab. Part of public schema. Objects are part of public schema. Now, so still you are able to connect as user Satya, but it expects a database by name Satya. But if you don't want the database by name Satya as same name as username, you can use the database name to connect actually. So specify the database name to connect. Now we got Ram who has got create DB. So if you try to connect as Ram from OS level PSQL user Ram, authentication is not allowed. So now user add, so we are connecting as Ram here PSQL. Okay, so we need to copy because you know that otherwise it uses default executables in bash profile file. What are the permissions which are there for other users? You can use the same permissions. Here you can either execute this file, but better re-login, because whenever you re-login will be available for shell which you are using and also for subshells. So now we are connected as RAM user. So when we tried earlier connecting as different user, it was not working. So which PSQL will be using the latest version. Now we can give PSQL, but okay, you know that it expects a database by name RAM itself. So instead of that, you can connect to any database. So we connected to Postgres database. Select current user. We connected as RAM. So let us list the database available. So there are different databases available. So no objects are there available here. Now if you look into the prompt, so you are not getting hash prompt here, you are getting Okay, so greater than symbol. So which is very similar to operating system level. When you connect as user, so you'll get dollar. So similar to that, here you get either dollar, okay, or sometimes you will get this prompt also. So we are getting this prompt means database to which you are connected, and you are connected as user, not as super user. So Ram is just a user who can create database. You can create database. Now create database. Who created database doesn't matter. Select a dat name from Business Code database. So we got a database by name Ram. So next time whenever Ram connects, can just give PSQL, but will connect with database, Ram database. So means user will be able to perform activities in Ram database. This database available. List the users available with permissions. Ram can create database. Now as one super user, Satya, alter user Ram, no create DB. So Ram doesn't have any permissions now. So now can Ram connect to any database? Okay, we check. So Ram is connecting to Ram database. Can Ram connect to Satya database? So connected to Satya as Ram, connected to Postgres. This user is able to connect to any database. So current user. Now Ram is able to connect to any database. Okay, is able to connect to any database. So let us check. Okay, let us quit again. Now we know that okay, so Ram doesn't have any permissions to create database. If Ram connects, is connecting to Ram database itself. So no objects are available. Create table, Ram tab. Okay, so Ram is able to perform activities in Ram database. So now we got a database by name Ram. Ram is the owner. Now we connected to Postgres database. Postgres is the owner. So let us see what will happen. So here Ram is the owner of this object now created in Postgres database. Means users will be able to connect to database to perform these activities. Now object is owned by Ram. If anyone has to access it, then permissions are required. Okay, permissions are required. So connect to Postgres. Select a current. Okay, I think is super user. Create database. Create table. Satya tab. You have two tables. Select star from Satya tab. Satya is the current user. So select star from tab. Okay, so now let us try to do the same thing from here. Ram current user is select current user, select star from Ram tab. So Ram is owner, Ram tab 2 actually. Ram is owner. Now select star from Satya tab. Okay, so here Satya was able to, current user is Satya, is able to perform activity on Ram tab 2 also and Satya tab, because Satya is super user. But Ram is not super user. Ram is not super user. Ram is normal user. So whenever Ram is able to connect, so OS authentication is done, will be able to create his own objects. Okay, but can access those objects, can perform any activity. But if the user tries to access objects of other users, so permissions are not available. Permissions need to be given. Permission need to be assigned actually. Okay, so means users are able to connect to database if user account is available, can work with any of the database. But if they want to perform activity on objects of other users, they must have necessary permissions. Okay, they must have necessary permissions. Either super user or user with necessary table level, column level permissions can perform activities. So here I've just taken Satya super user. Satya super user. So Ram is normal user, doesn't have any of these permissions to work. Okay, and Postgres is super user. So and here we can create roles where we can assign different permissions to perform database activities. To perform activities with objects, structure and contents, so they should have necessary permissions. So how to assign that? Okay, we'll see. So OS authenticated users will be able to connect and they can perform the activities. So before we move to permissions, users are able to connect and you can see which is that user you are connected as. Super user prompt is hash prompt. So normal user prompt is greater than symbol. So here we can see which is the database to which you are connected. Okay, and prompt wise, we come to know that user is connected as normal user. Can check for the permissions. Now, so we were discussing about so creating user, assigning them the necessary permissions to work with the to perform database activities. So if whenever user connects, okay, so user connects. Suppose user is a super user, can work with objects of any user. But if normal user connects, so you'll be able to perform activities on objects owned by the same user. But if you want to perform activities on the objects owned by other users, then necessary permissions are required. So object level permissions are required. So then only user will be able to perform activities on the objects of other users. So let us look into the permissions details. Let me switch to the white board again. To perform database level activities. Okay, so database level activities, permissions are given. So login permission or create DB, create role, and other permissions are, even super user permissions are given. Any super user will be able to connect as user and they can perform the activities. If you connect as Postgres user, we got a database by name Postgres itself. But if you connect as any other user from client system, so it expects a database to be available with same name. Okay, same name. So this can be here within database also we'll have a database and a user with same names. So then it is possible to connect. That can be either username or role name. Username, role name is one and same. So even OS user will be able to connect to the database with other databases also, only with databases. So we'll be able to connect and work actually. But whenever they want to work with the objects and contents, so then the necessary permission should be given in the form of permission management. Okay, so permission management. So we can also call it as authorization. Authorization must be given to users to perform activities of on objects of other users, either with structure and content. Now let us look into that. So permissions are nothing but a way of giving necessary privileges to users and roles. Okay, so users and roles. We can assign to users or roles, which is one and same. You know, the only difference is while creating user, login option will be available. So grant is a way to assign, revoke is a way to unassign it. So here, when we say privileges, we got two levels of privileges, permissions, authorizations, table level, column level. So suppose you got a table by name customers, you can give entire table, you can give permission so that they can perform DMLs and queries. In the other, we can also call them as CRUD operations. So they can perform insert, update, delete, as well as they can select also. So in case of PSQL, we use it as append, update, remove, and select also. If it is CRUD, DML is because as this CRUD is. So we're going to append, update, remove, select. Okay, so these are the A, append, U, update, R, remove, S, select. Okay, so okay, you can see with these names. And if you want to assign permissions on individual columns, even that is also possible. Suppose if you got a customer table, you want to assign only for certain fields. Out of available fields or columns, you want to assign only permissions for few fields, it is possible. For example, you want to give assign only permission to these three fields, customer ID, customer name, and category is possible. So for other fields, users will not have permissions. Only owner can perform any activity on any of the columns, entire table also. But when you assign a permission, you can assign it in column level also. If I assign in column level, which of the column user is having permissions can perform the activities. Again, they can perform any of these activities. So let us see how to assign and unassign privileges. Means provide authorization to users to perform activities on objects of other users. So let me switch to server again. Now whether you connect as Postgres user who is super user, or you connect as Satya user who is also a super user. And even if you connect as normal user who doesn't have permissions on objects of other users. Now let us check for the permissions. Objects of this. Okay, so DP. You can give DP. So means object is table. For example, Ram tab, Satya tab. So no permissions are seen means okay. So those can be used only by the owners and also the super users. Normal users will not be able to access it. So anyway, owner will have all permissions access. There is no restriction as such. Now even here, so DP user can check for that. Now let us grant. So current user is Satya. Grant select on Satya tab to Ram. So grant is assigned. Now let us check for the details. So you can see the moment you gave one permission, if you check, Satya can perform all activities on object, but Ram, okay, so can read. So can read which table? Satya. So R means read. Here if you take A means append, insert, R means read, W means write, D means delete. So similar to CRUD actually. CRUD is create, read, then update and delete. So it is similar to CRUD operations. So if you assign structural permissions, okay, so D will be there. So user will be perform activities, execute permissions. So truncate permissions are also available. Drop and truncate is also possible. Now Satya can do what? Only read. Now earlier, whenever Satya checked for the object, so permission was not given. Now if user checks for the permissions available, so user will come to know that Ram, current user, has got read permission on which object? Satya table. Select star from table name. So nothing is there again, it can be checked. Describe table, only one column is available. Now, so let Ram try to insert data, insert into table name, values 1. So permission is not available. Same insert if it is done by Satya user is able to perform the activity. So let us before that alter table, add number 2. So 2 columns are available now. So user is able to select the data. Same can be done by Ram user also. So select permission is there, but insert permission is not available. Now Satya is able to select both the fields. Okay, so now revoke select on table name from Ram. If we check for the permissions details, so the moment you give, okay, so now only for Satya all permissions are available. Who has granted it? Satya itself has granted it. Now if Ram tries to access it, permissions is not given. Grant select so column name. So here you can describe. If you describe, you know that okay. So we got 2 columns. Now for example, okay, so we'll see grant select on number 2 column on Satya table to Ram. So is granted. Means what owner is doing is granting only for 1 column of Satya table to Ram user. So now let us check the details. Here your owner itself can check. So if you check the details, column privileges for number 2 column of Satya tab, number 2 column. So Ram has got read permission. So anyway, owner will have all permissions, but Ram has got read permission. For which column? Number 2 column. So suppose if user tries to select star from, will not work. Select number 2 from Satya tab. So will work actually. Because user has got select permission on only 1 column. Now similar to that, okay, we can also grant insert number 2 on. So we granted it. So here insert is nothing but append actually. Append permission is available. Now user is able to insert into so must give within bracket column name So he's able to insert data to column and he is able to select the data. Means for other column, number 2 column, for example, if you check here, select star from Satya tab. So value is not there. Number 2 column, sorry, number 1 column value is not there, but number 2 column is inserted, but by user who's got permission on that. What permission user had? Insert permission. How to know that? If we check for the permissions, DP. So column level privileges, which column, who, what permissions are there. Now here one consideration is, here number column, if it is a primary key, so then it would have rejected actually. Means if any other column can't accept null values, if user has got permission to append it, means create a new document, will not be able to perform it. So why this is useful is, suppose you got 20 columns in your table, and application wise they may not use all 20 columns, they may use only 8 columns. So you can give permission only for those 8 columns to users, not for entire table. So this is the objective. So you can revoke whatever you granted, revoke so here what we revoked is insert. Earlier it was there, append was there, means A is insert actually, is not available now. Grant select on Satya tab to Ram. So user will be able to select entire table. Okay, so we are you can assign only, for example, grant from to. So user has got append permission, also read permission for entire table, append permission means insert permission for a specific column. Revoke all on from. So we are using all permissions. Now if we check for the permissions, so user doesn't have, Ram user doesn't have any permission on a table. So all means it includes table level, any tab permissions, any number of permissions, column level, any number of permissions, all are revoked now. Similar to that, grant all on. We can grant all on also. So append, read, write, delete, drop, execute, truncate, all permissions are there. So for Ram also. Now Ram will be able to perform any kind of activities on that particular table. So this is how we can grant and revoke. So if you don't need to give, you can revoke it. Okay, revoke. So we revoked only delete. Okay, so yeah, small d is not there now. Delete is not possible, so you can't delete. So can insert update. Okay, so can't delete it. So like this, from all permissions you can revoke individual permissions also. If say revoke all on, if you say revoke all, so it will revoke all table level permissions, column level permissions also. So this is how we're going to assign permissions, means authorizations for users to perform activities of objects of other users, though they are there in same database where the user will be able to log in and they can access. They will not be able to perform activities unless they got necessary permissions. Now Satya doesn't have any permissions on, sorry, Ram doesn't have any permissions on Satya tab. Will not be able to perform any kind of activities. So this is about permissions, authorization. So working with structure. Okay, so and also the contents is your authorization. So for that you can use grant and revoke. All means all permissions, individual permissions also you can work with. Delete, update, insert, select. So all these are individual. So you can assign it on individual means entire table, all columns applicable or individual columns. When you are using columns, immediately after the keyword you have to use that column. So this is about authorization working with objects. So here we have got two types of permissions to be given. One is to working with the database, performing database activities. The other is working with objects, working with structures and content of the object. So this is about user and role management, which you won't use. Okay, users we need later part for our other activities also. We'll use them further for our other activities.